All right. Today's webinar is being presented by Lynda Konecny. It's Behind the Curtain, Experiencing the Instructional Design Process from both the faculty and the student perspective. Lynda is our Associate Professor for the Health Education and Education and Health Profession programs. She's worked with ATSU since 2005 and became a full-time faculty member with us in 2009. She is an ATSU alumna, having received her Doctor of Health Education degree from CGHS, although then we were the School of Health Management. She also holds a Master of Science in Counseling and Student Personnel Services, a Bachelor of Science in Behavioral Psychology, and is currently pursuing her Doctor of Health Science degree with an education concentration. Her passions and experiences include the exploration and evaluation of wellness resources in higher education, innovative teaching methodologies, the practical application of health education theories and models, the educational aspects of health promotion, and examining learning theory in relation to student learning with an emphasis on behavior modification. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Lynda.
Thank you very much. And you know, when I sent that to you, I didn't realize how long it was. I got to cut that back. Nobody needs an introduction. Anyway, so I'm going to, you feel free to totally minimize me and just look at the slides. Wouldn't hurt my feelings at all. But as Marcia mentioned, I am reporting on my internship spent with our instructional designers. And so it is, to me, I always told them in our meetings, I wanted to see behind the curtain. I want to know what happens behind the scenes, because I've been on the course, the content developer, and I've actually done curriculum mapping for courses and entire programs. I've even courses in other learning management systems, but I've never really had the opportunity to just see all the inner workings and see how it all works out. And my knowledge, not just my curiosity, and helped me with my science, because I needed to do an education internship, but also this is, you know, our area that we teach. I teach education courses, so it can only enhance me there as well. So the internship was 80 hours, and I started actually in February of this year and ended in June. And I had amazing experience, and I'm actually going through quite a bit of withdrawal, not going to my weekly ID meetings. That was my sort of few hours of really a lot of fun. We laughed quite a bit and got a lot of, I mean, they're so productive, but they also have so much fun. So I'm going through withdrawal. I might have to pop in every once in a while just to holler at them and get them off track, as I would do often with my questions and just my comments. So, but so that's kind of why I did that, why I chose this, and what the purpose was. As you can see, it's not a typical research project. I'm considering this an observer as participant, and I'm basically reporting on my experience there. And of course, there's going to be a reason why, there we go. And so the purpose of the internship was to experience the curriculum development process from the perspective of the instructional design team. And I approached it as a faculty and as a faculty member and as a student. So I was able to see kind of, and even hopefully give them some insights too, being there, sitting in the meetings, of, you know, what I see from our end about what's going on. And then I could ask questions and get clarifications, and they could ask questions of me. And of course, I was only talking from my perspective. Everyone has their own experiences. But through the internship experience, knowledge about the processes, it was after our curriculum meetings with the subject matter experts or the content developers. So I was looking to gain information about that. Skills needed to build courses within each learning management systems, assess adherence to accreditation and quality standards, and revise existing curricula were learned in the internship. Our instructional designers work with all the programs in CGHS, and so exposure to ensure consistency of the programs was also gained. And so the overview of, this is basically a overview of literature and overview of, this is a bit beyond my internship experience, but this was the sort of a preparation for it that I did. And so basically, if you can, those are the, why instructional design is becoming more and more important, instructional designers involved in the process, is because there are expanding options, especially for online, but even for any residential. If anybody's done a flipped or a hybrid or any other type of course, there's so many different learning management systems. There's so many additional tools available that we can incorporate into the classrooms. And while the educators, we can be considered the subject matter experts or the content developers, we may not be well versed in all those methods of instruction. I know I can't keep up with all the learning, all the learning management systems or all the tools that are available. I don't know, maybe some of us have a lot of free time that we could do all that, but I don't. And so it's very nice to know that we've got this team that actually, that's their job. So that's what they do, is they're the ones who can become the experts in that area. They are the experts in their field. And so we may be subject matter experts in content, but they are subject matter experts in instructional design, opportunities, tools, management systems, all of those kind of things. All the processes that are used to guide the content, the creation of the course content. And I've got the references to basically support. These are not just my, although I totally agree with them, but they are not just my opinions. This is what I found in the literature. The instructional designers also ensure that the courses are developed ultimately based on sound theory. And often subject matter experts are industry experts and maybe not as well versed in like instructional design theory and things like that. So that's where instructional designers can play a part. And so the role of the instructional designers, as I mentioned, they're trained to use the models that are grounded in theory. And our instructional designers in specific, and I'll get more into this later, are highly trained. Like their knowledge is, the knowledge level of that group is amazing. And they help to facilitate the learning process. Their goal is to ensure the students gain the skills and knowledge needed to be competent professionals and meet the needs of society. And I mean, that's the goal in general of curriculum development, and the instructional designers share that goal with the faculty members. The role of the instructional designers are specifically trained to use models grounded, as I mentioned, and excuse me, due to the increasing formats for in educational instruction and delivery, they play a vital role. Effective instructional design approaches can help facilitate the learning process, and instructional designers must not only understand those theories and models, but used to develop the curriculum, but they also have to understand the principles of pedagogy, the culture of the institution, and the learner needs. They basically work to make sure our students get the best experience and it's consistent across programs. The curriculum developers, and those are the subject matter experts or the content developers, they, again, as I mentioned, they have knowledge about how to ensure the courses are systematically and thoroughly developed, but they may not, and they may not even have experience teaching. All of ours do at this point, but sometimes even outside experts are hired to develop content that meets industry standards. So then especially the role of the instructional designer is important. But the curriculum developers ensure content meets the professional needs and standards. And it's part of a team process. They focus on, curriculum developers focus on creative, innovating, and engaging instructional material based on the professional knowledge. But again, educators who serve as curriculum developers may not have comprehensive knowledge about all the components of the instructional design process and all that's available for them. So I mentioned our instructional designers are so knowledgeable. I learned so much from them, and I appreciated it more than I can say, the experience. Like I said, it was not just educational, it was also very fun. They're a great team. And I would recommend anybody, faculty members can go and go to the meetings if you want. You just let them know and watch the process, especially if it's one of the courses that you're working on. But so just as faculty have expertise in content development, instructional designers have expertise in course development. They are highly trained in pedagogy. They spend a lot of time assessing the appropriate levels of Bloom's taxonomy, for example, and how many faculty members who are not trained in education really understand Bloom's. It's more than just a list of verbs, action verbs that you apply, and it's more than just levels. There's a whole, there's actually a whole theory behind it. And we look at these charts, that have everything listed, but it's beyond that, and they understand that. So the instructional designers are all trained in pedagogy, and all of their professional development is in pedagogy and online education. So again, for us as faculty members or as students, we tend to go to professional development that still is within our field of expertise. Mine happens to be education, so that would be mine. But I also do public health, or I do health education, because that's also an area of where I teach, and an area that I have interest in and a certification in. But we generally go to meetings, professional development, conferences. We present in those areas, where the instructional designers do that same thing in professional, in the areas related to pedagogy and curriculum design. All of them have gone through Quality Matters training, which is, as you know, we're all trying to get in our program school. All of us are trying to go through that training, but they've done that, and they can apply that to course design. And they have years of experience not only in design, but also in teaching. A lot of them have been educators for years. They work with the Higher Learning Commission. As I mentioned, they not only have gone through Quality Matters training, but some of them actually conduct it now. So, they have that expertise. I guess I drew enough about that. You get my point. I will say one of the first things, it was in April, I spent a week with the instructional designers in Kirksville, which I love, by the way, because I lived there for 6 years and worked on campus for 4, and so it was really nice to go back to Kirksville. So that was fun. But one of the days we drove to the Iowa Distance Learning Association conference, and we did one or two. I don't remember, Kathy, but I know at least one of the IDs presented, maybe 2. I know another one is on the board, on the holds one of the leadership positions. I mean, they're very, very involved in these professional organizations. And I was able to attend a whole day's worth of sessions on instructional design, different areas. It's just amazing, so they've got these great resources, and they connect with other professionals, not just regionally, but nationally, and continue to learn that way. But I really enjoyed the conference, and I hope to go back because it was really, really good for me to learn, because it applies to what I do full-time anyway. They also know what learning tools are available. And so especially now, as we're moving from Blackboard to Canvas, they are now becoming experts in Canvas. And so what will work and what won't work, and what has been done well and what hasn't. And so when we have an idea as a content designer, content developer, and I want to do like a peer review exercise, or I have an idea. I have this idea, this concept of what I want the students to do to learn. I can talk to the IDs and they can then say, you know what will work is this tool. This has worked. And they know from not only their own education and training, but also maybe it's been used in another program. Maybe they talked to somebody else at another institution who's found it very successful. And so, that's their role, is they explore these, they know this. And so I have found it always, even before I did the internship, so beneficial to say, hey, this is my idea. What do we got? How can we do this? How can we accomplish it? And we work through it. And one way or another, and it may not end up being exactly what I had originally had in my, the concept in my head, but it usually ends up better because they're able to make sort of that dream into a reality. So I think that one of the best, most valuable points that I learned was not only their expertise, but also they have that big picture view. They see everything that they work on every course in all of our programs within the school. And that's good for consistency. It's good to ensure quality education. It makes sure that all of our students are having the same type of experience and that quality standards are met. But also, again, they know what has worked well and what maybe didn't work so well, and that has been tried, and so they can really help guide us. And that brings me to the collaboration aspects of this. As I mentioned, they have the big picture view. They see everything across the board. And I also mentioned that they work to make it the best opportunity for students. And they have a fresh eyes approach. So again, may have a concept. I have an idea. I have a flow for the course. And what they can look at is from maybe put the student hat on and look at it from a student perspective, or look at it from, other perspectives, sort of take it beyond my perspective. It's that fresh eyes approach. It's just like you can't proofread your own work. They basically help you with that refinement and just make sure that, their goal is to make sure the students are having the best experience possible, not the best as in the funnest, but the best learning experience, and fun too. And I mentioned earlier too, the faculty are always welcome to meet with the IDs, just contact them to make the arrangements. And I really do think it's a valuable experience to watch the process, because the collaboration that they do in their weekly meetings is amazing. And it usually takes, they'll work with these, let's say they're working on a syllabus, they collaborate. It's not just one person kind of going through, and everybody's got great ideas, and maybe again fresh eyes ideas, and even amongst themselves they work to just brainstorm on how this this course or this assessment or these learning activities can be enhanced, how they are relevant, and again working on like Bloom's taxonomy. What is the right action verb? How is this best stated to be clear to the students and to help guide the faculty? And during that collaboration process, I learned a lot just listening and often giving my own 2 cents, because that's what I do. But I was just amazed at how they work as such a collaborative team. They're a really great team. But as I mentioned, they work to take what we see in our head, or what we've written down, our vision for what we want the course to be, and they turn it into reality for us. Some of the important aspects, excuse me, I know I have a frog in my throat today, but I do. Anyway, one of the important things that I think this is another one of those aha type of things, and I told them this a few times in our meetings, is the timelines. And we are, everybody's busy. And I don't, when I was given courses to design, to develop, content to develop, there's always fires to put out. So because I maybe didn't really understand the domino, I think I have a broader perspective than a lot of people, because I've spent 30 plus years, and saying it that way does make me feel really old, but 30 plus years in higher education, 10 years teaching, and 20 years beyond that working in student affairs. And so I was involved in student affairs and different aspects for 20 years before I even became a faculty member. So I understood what happened when a course description was changed. you can't just change it in one spot. There's this big trickle effect. And it's like one of the course developer or the instructional designer says, you know, it's like if you pull a strand on a web, the whole web shakes. Well, that is really how this happens. And it's not just for the little, like the big things, it's for the little things too. And so again, you know, I'm caught up maybe as a content developer in my day-to-day life. I'm teaching, I'm trying to do research. Right now I'm trying to go to school as well. And I'm trying to juggle all these balls. And if I didn't really process the timeline for course development. And so that would kept getting pushed down on my to-do list. I'd be like, I'm sorry, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. I promise I get to it, which great intentions, I meant to, but often I would be a little bit behind. Well, the effects of that, like I said, it's just a domino, because the instructional designers have these matrices and they have everything lined out. They have a strict calendar of when things should be done. And it's not their wish. It's not like, well, let's randomly assign this. They backwards plan. If I say, if our program chair, we want to have a course implemented at a specific time, there are like 5 million tasks that need to be done before that I didn't even have, with all my 30 years of experience, had no idea of all of the little pieces that had to be put in place. And none of them are like 2-second pieces. They're all big pieces that have to be put into place. So every time I delayed, because I'm at the starting point of it, it delays the end point of it because of all this trickle effect. And, you know, and again, maybe I'm the only one who ever did this, but my delays, you know, pushing it on my to-do list and feeling horrible about it, but me feeling horrible about it doesn't help give them any more time. And so we all have limited time and resources. So we need to understand that, you know, there's a method to everything, and it all is set. And if my delays can cause a lot of delays for other people, and I never think that my procrastination should be another person's problem, but I found when I was designing courses, sometimes it ended up being, so I apologized for that. But I think it's an important lesson for us to know that we all have limited time and resources. And so we need to respect the timelines, because it's not, like I said, it's not random. They're not randomly assigned. They are, if you want this implemented, this is the time they need to do these tasks, these, you know, tons of tasks that have to go into course development. And especially, you know, I'm speaking from the online perspective, and you even think of something like building a course. If you've ever built a course online, you know how long that takes. I mean, so you can look at the perspectives of pieces of it, but then when you think of the big picture, because again, it doesn't just affect our school, it affects the university, the registrar's office, the recruiting, everything. I mean, marketing, all of that is part of it. Which brings me to the big picture. And so we have to look at how all this fits into the big picture. And the registrar is responsible for granting the appropriate credit. So again, even if there's a little change, it affects even something like the registrar, because they are the ones who assign credit hours to it. Excuse me. Now, the registrar makes it the I-team responsibility that the credit hour assignment is appropriate. And so what that means is that if there's a 5 or 4 or 3 credit hour course, the appropriate amount of work has to be put into that by the students. And that's sort of where the Carnegie units fall in. Right now, it's 135 units for a 3 credit course, and 45 for established, and 45 per credit hour established by which is established by the registrar. And it's based on student engagement. And Carnegie units are basically a consistent way to identify student engagement across programs. And this is another thing that I think, you know, I hadn't worked with Carnegie units before the past couple years when we really started focusing on it. So I asked several times, because I just really wanted to understand, even before the internship, like how this all goes into play. Well, now I understand it. Like I said, it's based on credit hours. It's not just this one person in an office randomly assigning this. It's based on industry standards. There's a purpose to it. And it's based on content putting the students' learning needs first and what's needed for the profession and how things are aligned to competencies within the professions, within the and also just, you know, we are a high quality institution and we want to make sure that our graduates are high quality and we maintain accreditation and we maintain successful enrollments and graduation rates. So let me just make sure that I sort of got off rambling here. Make sure I didn't miss any of my main points there. I think the bottom line is that, again, content is based on students first, and if we follow the processes, it tends to work out for the students and for us. So you have to sort of trust in the big picture, that it's not one person, it's not randomly decided. A lot of thought by many people has gone into how this is determined, and a lot of research and a lot of effort. So I trust in it, and I think it's a pretty good system. So bottom line is that I personally had to do, these are my summary, I guess almost conclusion, my thoughts at the end. And this is all based on my personal experience, and anybody else, of course, you're going to draw your own conclusions or your own summary. But it's like a paradigm shift. And this is something that we discussed with the instructional designers during that, or I discussed, is it was like seeing, for me, I'm a very visual person. And so instead of seeing it as a linear process, you do this, this, it is actually a broad collaboration. And so instead of seeing it as a paper and pencil type of, you know, we're writing it down and it's getting done, it's actually a very person-centered and artistic process. If you think, I mean, a lot goes into creating good content, and then a lot goes into making the courses not just consistent for the students and meeting ADA requirements and making sure that the standards are solid, making sure, and this is one of the things that I was talking with Marcia about before is, for example, the introductions, writing introductions for modules, very painful for me. I'm the bottom line up front, and I don't like to write a lot of lengthy things that are sort of what I see as, you know, the feel-good messages. One of my flaws, I'm working on it, I don't know, at my age, maybe this is how I'm going to be, but I see the importance of all of that and have to sort of try and put on my artistic hat in some of these and realize why we're doing all that. The same, like for, we were also talking about rubrics, and, you know, the rubrics, they really fit into the process as well. And I know some faculty may struggle with using rubrics and creating them, but they really help make sure it's a quality course. I know students love it. I mean, maybe not all, but I mean, I know I've heard more often than not students appreciating solidly developed rubrics. And when there are errors or issues with rubrics, they point them out. So they do look at them. I know as a student now, when I'm doing my assignments, the first thing I do is I pull up the assignment instructions and I pull up the rubric, because I want to make sure I meet, and it's not to try and do the minimum. To me, I'm making sure I meet the maximum. It's making sure that I am getting everything out of the assignment that I possibly can, and I don't want to miss anything. And so they're really important. And like I said, they help not just the student, but they also help the faculty members. And our rubrics are structured so that there's consistency in grading, but also you have a range of grades that you can leave for each category, and so you can put your own personal notes in there and use some, guide them by providing the quality summative feedback or formative, depending on the type of assignment. But the other, sorry, I got off the track. I keep on rambling, but the other thing is that I think it's important to be teachable about the processes. You know, there's a lot beyond what we see on the surface. And so it's really interesting to learn about the processes. And so for me to be open to learning about them and take time to learn them. and understand truly the wealth of knowledge that our instructional designers have, and that they are truly subject matter experts in their area, and they are willing to teach. And they are very good teachers, very kind, and very respectful. So it was really good, great experience. And again, that we are all partners in the development process. So again, like I said, that's basically my experience. We'll get that in a sec. And so I want to thank you for your time. I promised Marcia I wouldn't be taking the whole hour, so about a half-hour presentation content. I have the references if you ever want to look at instructional design has been growing, thankfully, a lot recently, and but there is the evidence for sure to show that it's needed and valuable in the course development process. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to share, but again, I would like to keep them focused on my internship and my experience. Somebody in the chat, let's see. Oh, we had a few, okay. Isn't part of the reason they rely on the rubrics simply the fact that they are graded? Can you say what you're trying? I don't really understand what you're.
Sure, Lynda. Hi, everybody. It's Greg. So I have a love-hate relationship with the rubrics. I totally agree that if they're designed well, they can be a really valuable tool. And I haven't put enough time into designing my own rubrics well. So that's definitely a weakness right there. But I also feel like there's a certain type of spoon feeding that's taking place in education now. We want to standardize everything. Rubrics become a form of, spelling out very sort of specifically what we want the students to generate. And but it's almost a type of decreasing the uncertainty in a way that's counterproductive. So we think of it as, if we do a really good job with the rubric, we give them really good guidance on what we want. But I find, and from taking classes, to be honest, that I look at the rubric and I just sort of say, okay, this is exactly what I need to say in there. And I just basically do what the rubric tells me to do. And it decreases the creativity and the thought process that I use to create the product that they want. So, two things. One, students rely on it because they realize that there's a rubric there, that's what's going to be looked at in the assignment. So I don't know that they necessarily love it, they just know that that's what they have to do. So of course they use it. And two, on the one hand, it's a really powerful tool for helping them, but the flip side of that is it also seems at times to decrease their creativity and thought process.
And, a bigger discussion for beyond this presentation, my experience, but I think there's more evidence that rubrics are sound pedagogy than there is against them. And I think there's always, it's just like anything. There are going to be the students who use it and just want to, make, okay, I check this off, got this. But a well-designed rubric also means that what you're looking for is the objectives that are met. We're laying the path out. How the students get there is up to them. So you're not writing it for them. You're not creating their content. And so you might tell them you need to touch on, well, I just had one an assignment that I turned in, and it was like I had to do a mission statement. Well, they didn't tell me, I learned how to write the mission statement. I looked up examples. I had to still create my own. But the objective of the assignment was, or the purpose of the assignment was to create a mission statement, those kind of things. So I think, yeah, I can see how the flip side where you're spoon feeding, but a well-done rubric and assessment gives clear guidance, but it's still up to the student to create the content. But again, we're talking, well,
No, I think that's a fair response, Linda.
Oh,
I mean, I don't know exactly where the line is. It feels to me like in the MPH program, I have a lot of students and they get very sophisticated at doing the least amount of work possible to get through a class. I find myself doing it as well. And
you
so,
know, I can't say I haven't done that myself. You know what I mean? Like, it's just time crunches and students will do that too. I will tell you here's an experience I had not long ago is I turned in an assignment based on the rubric, which is a very, very, very general rubric. And, you know, so I turned it in and I got 2 points taken off. Now, yes, I am the type A person who wants to get every single point. And I really fought for days the urge to say, because my feedback was excellent work, great job. You are one of the only ones who mentioned this, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay. And it was on peer responses. I met the number. I was like, I added resources. I probed questions. I was like, I don't know what else they want me to do because there was no feedback and the rubric was so generic. So I asked the instructor, I said, you know, I'm so sorry that I am this way, but this is what please tell me, you know, what I can do to get full, you know, what I did. And the instructor said, you're doing great work. I grade on both quantity and quality. I'll give you those 2 points back if you want, which was less than helpful. Like, it was,
did I write too little or too much?
I was like, no, that's not what I mean. I'm not worried because he said, if you average it out, you're still getting a strong A. I'm like, well, I knew that. I can do the math. What I wanted to know was, you know, specifically, where was I falling short? Because I wanted to work on that content or that effort. So anyway, I don't know how we get beyond the students who work to the minimum. I don't think we ever can. I think that's just kind of life. And as you said, you've done it, I've done it. I think, though, creating a solid course, and the rubric is just one piece of that, you know, that's the whole mapping of everything, is more beneficial. So,
sure.
But yeah, again, like I said, I love actually discussing this kind of thing, but I don't want to get too far off the rails.
Sure.
And, yeah. See, so John, let's see. And I'm sorry, I have to like lean in because the chat is small. Oh, I can enlarge it. No, that didn't work.
You want me to read it to you?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So
I'm going to stop sharing my screen, actually, if that's okay. That way I'll see each other. Or
it's from John Fick. Okay, so first, because I already read it. First, let me thank you for your presentation this afternoon. I, too, have appreciated my many interactions and collaboration with the IDs in course design and/or revision. With that said, given your experience and learning that took place during your internship with the IDs and putting on the hat of a consultant, what consultative recommendations would you make to improve the overall design process in the future?
That's a really good question. So I think it kind of goes back to my lessons learned is one is we have to be open to understanding the process. And I think I think, and again, these are just my perspectives, but even I who have worked in higher ed, as I mentioned, for more years than I want to even admit, because it makes me feel so old, but and I who have worked in there forever, and knew the ripple effect, didn't understand all of the big picture. And I think we have to realize, and I know that we've seen the charts but I think seeing it two-dimensional is different from experiencing it. So I think experiencing it, going to the meetings and, you know, but Kat, I know we've already done presentations on different things. So I'm not really answering your question. I'm sorry, John. But because what I see is it's just being open and trying to learn and understand the big ripple effect. I think if we are able to, if we understand the expectations, the timelines that the IDs are put on, like we ask them, what when do you need this, and make them hard deadlines for ourselves. That's helpful. And we really understand what happens if we kind of miss a deadline, things like that. Did that answer at all, or did I miss the mark?
I just want to add something, maybe kind of just from my experience as a program chair and curriculum developer and course developer and all that too, and I have not been an instructional designer either, but I feel kind of like maybe what you're trying to say is sort of use the IPE model. I mean, we're all familiar with interprofessional education, right? And
yes.
and they're borrowing from other models, and it's just the same kind of model applies. I mean, you have to, the whole idea behind IPE is, look, okay, you learned your role in a silo, and you learned your role in a silo, and we all learned these various roles, but the fact that all these healthcare professionals, learn their role in a silo and, aren't working together well enough is resulting in, higher healthcare costs and, more mortality, all that stuff, because they're not collaborating. And the reason they're not collaborating very well is because they're not understanding each other's roles. And so that's the whole push toward IPE is what part of IPE is learning each other's role well enough so that you can collaborate and respect each other's roles. So it's this teamwork kind of stuff, and it's all that kind of thing. And if you don't do that, then it's just not going to work. So I think it's just to answer the question, it's just embracing the fact that there are all of these roles that are equally important in accomplishing a given task. And
yes.
And being able to work together to make the ultimate goal happen. Because if you don't, then it's not going to happen.
Yes,
So
that's perfect.
Could I add something to that?
Yeah.
I agree with that. And I like to think that my relationship with the course designers is pretty strong. I've worked on a couple of things with them, and it's turned out really well. Their contributions were really helpful. Having said that, in your presentation, it sounded at times a whole lot like, well, the course designers, the instructional designers, they know how to teach, they know how to run courses, but I'm just a content expert. But I've been teaching.
I didn't mean for it to come out that way at all.
Hold on, it's not meant to be a criticism of you, Lynda. Right, but there is that sort of important, recognition, which sometimes matters, that in the sort of we've learned in our silos and we need to communicate, it's a two-way street. I've been teaching for 25 years, and the standardization I talked about, the sort of trying to make it all fit into a package within an online program in a certain way, at times doesn't recognize the degree to which I know what works. Theory be damned. I know what works, and I know how in a 10-week course unfolding, the energy moves in different ways during that 10 weeks. And my ability to build a course that works that way, or to make changes in the 8th week to the syllabus because I'm feeling that, all of those things are getting truncated. And I'm not suggesting that the instructional designers aren't open to that, because I'm certain that they are. And we just need to do a good job of perhaps presenting to them, the sorts of things we actually want to build into the course, not just course content, not just content expertise, but also our expertise as educators, our expertise as people who know how to run a classroom.
No, and I agree, and I did. So I guess what I failed to mention was that they really do respect us as our expertise in our content areas, and that we all have teaching experience. That's what I really saw in the meetings I would go, is their respect for faculty members. And so I think it go back to that. We need to collaborate. We need to really look at collaboration. And I agree with you. I think I've always saw that they were open to everything. But there's also then sort of standards that are beyond their control as well. That we have to meet as a school, and for other processes, accreditation, and for, like I said, registrar and things like that. And, making last minute changes while a course is going actually has bigger effects than just what's in that one module. But then you can look to discuss and change it for the future, which is, so like I said, they are, we all have our roles, and I think that there is crossover. Obviously, you're an expert teacher. They have it. They've taught. They have that too. But so I think it's respecting, and I'm, I think we all have good working relationships with them. I haven't heard anybody that really, we may have issues to work through when we're designing a course, but that's just professional. That's just what you do. You work through these things. So anyway, I think in the big picture, that's what it is. It's just looking at, that's what I saw is they are really open to collaboration. I think we are everybody's open to collaboration, and we just need to spend more time, the time that we have so free, that we have so much of doing that.
So can I just say another thing kind of on that is, so I think that I was actually looking at John's next question, which I shouldn't be, sorry, I'm just getting too involved. But I think that the way to kind of smooth it out is, what I have found works is you give the instructional designer the lead. That doesn't mean they know everything and that you have to defer to everything they say, but there's always room for, okay, thank you for that input about, pedagogically speaking, that seems like that should work. But in my 20 years in teaching this particular thing, this is what I have found. And I can say with 99.8% certainty that an instructional designer's response would be, oh, okay, well, let's do it that way then. So it's just speaking up, and that's basically just an example of collaboration. Just because they are offering that pedagogical or andragogical perspective doesn't mean that that's the answer. It's just, well, from what I know, it's this, and then you say, well, from what I know, teaching it for 20 years, this is actually what works. And so maybe you can somehow combine the two to something that is pedagogically sound, but also works.
Thank you. Yeah.
I've said my piece.
No, and I appreciate it because you're more articulate than I am today. I don't know. I'm just tongue-tied. And I can't pull up my chats right now. Maybe if I
can.
Okay.
Go ahead, Marcia.
Okay. Yeah, John's follow-up was, so how could the SME contributions be improved? And how could the ID contributions be improved? That is, how can we work better given the IPE model?
Well, and again, I'm reporting on my internship experience, and I kind of think we're getting off into a larger discussion than that, but I think it's a valuable one, but maybe it's something we need to set a time to discuss in the future. I don't want to put it off because it is important. And if it, Kathy or whoever, if we want to talk about that now, fine, but I don't want to take the lead on that because I'm just reporting on my internship experience. And my opinion would be just what we've talked about. It's collaboration. I really think that beyond, like, when we're working with the course development process, so yes, I'm going to give my opinion anyway. So when we're working with the course development process, if I'm the subject matter expert and I've done that part of it, following, working already closely with the instructional designer, but then continue to work through it. Go to the meetings where they discuss my curriculum and hear what they all have to say as well. It's like what Erin was saying, just hear the input. We work on a committee level with our content development, and then they're working on a team level with the design element. So why not then find a midway point where they merge as well? Does that make sense? Like, I see we're working on this, our committee, our instructional design committee, and then they're working on the actually implementing everything, like putting it all into place, taking what, like I said, what our dream is, putting it into reality. That it's like we meet and then they meet. So let's meet together in that midway point and have that conversation together. Does that make sense? Can you help me out with that, Erin? Did that?
Yeah, that totally made sense. It was just a different way of saying what I said. Yeah.
Okay.
I think.
Hey, Lynda, I have a question about your internship experience.
Thank you.
Linda's my closest friend, so I have to jump in here and ask this question. And I actually thought about it a long time ago. This is not a rescue attempt. You mentioned, or you have in your presentation, that you actually mentioned the paradigm shift. And I love those moments, and I wish they happened more often. And sometimes they improve my week, and sometimes they're life-changing. But can you think back within your internship, and I was hopeful that you can come up with an example when you were physically in Kirksville, when something happened in a meeting where you were working on some project to fulfill an internship goal, and you went, aha, now I get it. And now I see it differently, and I think differently, and this changes me from this point forward.
I think I had echo. I wish I remembered the example of it. So it was just there's as we all are, we are an incredibly witty group of faculty, students, and staff. And but in one meeting, there was, I think because I am a visual, and it was, and I'm going to say her name, but because I have to give credit where credit is due, but Elsie mentioned the spider web. And if you touch one strand of a spider web and the ripple, that to me was an aha moment. And I know it's not a specific example related to that, but because I'm the visual, I was like, oh yeah, wow. So as simple as it sounds, that was one of those moments for me of like being able to visualize how does that help anybody else? My twinkle fingers?
Definitely.
But I was like, man, yeah, that's exactly the great way to say it for somebody like me who's a visual, that if you change one thing, and I don't remember what the conversation, we might have been talking about food or something else too. I mean, it could have been totally unrelated to instructional design, but that was one of those aha moments for me.
Thanks, Lynda.
I'm sorry, but I thought of another. Was a time when it was talked about, and again, I can't remember exactly, and I wish I could fulfill your request of giving you that specific example, but it was talking about the artistic approach, because I am one who, as I mentioned, I struggle with writing something like an introduction. I struggle with some of these more warm and fuzzy artistic pieces of it, even though I can be artistic in other areas. I kind of just want to be bottom line up front when I'm writing, and it was creating, some of these wording and putting this artistic flow on it. And it was like, oh, yeah, no, I get it. It's still hard for me, but I get it.
I have a question. So we have our faculty, they work with the instructional designers on changing the course, developing the courses and stuff. But you mentioned through your internship, you now understand why it takes so long to get a course changed and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest issues that we face is when they want a change, like they don't understand, myself included, I tend to be impatient. I wanted it done yesterday. So after your internship, you developed a greater sense of appreciation for why it does take so long. How would you go about explaining, or what would you say to those of us who are impatient and want it done, as far as, you've seen both sides now, as far as giving us more patience to, we love our instructional designers, but basically what would you tell us as far as, how would you explain, hey, this does take so long, it is a process, and we know that, but, we're the 2-year-old who want the cookie now versus the 6 cookies later. How would you explain that to us to get us to be more patient? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And if I could send either, a box of chocolates or something like, a massage or something like that to help to give more patience, I would do that. But I think if I'm feeling that way and like don't really understand, I would suggest asking, what is the timeline for this? Try and just get the clarification, because understanding helps increase patience. Understanding helps.
Oh, we have the timeline, and they'll tell us, in order to get it done for the February class, you have to get it turned in by October. And they're like, well, why October? Why can't I turn it in December for February? Or something like that. How do we explain the process better? Or, does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't really know how to answer that though, because if,
Explain it to your faculty.
Yeah.
Just be patient. It's the process. Sorry, I'll step. I just.
Oh, these are educated adults, you know. It's not that easy.
Oh, you're educated adults. Be patient. Sorry, I don't know. I don't know a better answer either, Lynda, on that one.
yeah, I think it might go to, you know, if they've already got the facts and it's still not appeasing their need for immediate gratification, I don't know what I can do.
Like I'm saying, I'll admit I'm guilty of it too. You know, if we want something done, we want it done. Yes, I mean we're all kind of like that at times. You know?
I think that yeah, it is. It's like it is. You know, here's the timeline. Just and ask what areas, if it's just, if there's something that can be solved, ask them what area are you unclear about? What more information do you need? But if it's just no matter what you say, they're impatient. Send them a cookie. I don't know.
Well, and maybe, I mean, this has been very helpful, and for me too, even though I thought I already knew the process. I mean, tell them to watch this. Say, hey, look, here's the recording. And
awesome. Go talk to Lynda.
Oh, sorry. I get just guffawed.
You know, you have to be able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes sometimes. I mean, otherwise, how are you ever going to even collaborate, you know? I mean, yeah.
Well, as John added in the chat, he said it would be nice to see the timeline with all of the steps involved in the process. And that might be a good way to help explain that.
And maybe that, because I saw that, and that's when it was one of the, well, Josh, that actually answers your question on one of them. When I saw the timeline in IRMA, which is their database, when I saw the tasks and the color coding that they use to keep on track and their whole system I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, it's very organized. It's very, you know, I mean, there's a rigid flexibility to it, I would call, because it's organized, but, you know, they have to adjust as they go, just like anybody. But you know, they color code for different things. They're very clear, and they have so much to juggle, as we all do. I'm not, you know, we all have so much to juggle, and that's why I think sometimes, you know, for me, I get sometimes overwhelmed when I've got, like right now I have to do revisions on the course, and I'm like, you know, okay, we'll fit that in.
You know, in response to something that Mary Catherine said, I do not have a full understanding of the process and the timeline. I think an ID who's been working with us for 3 months still doesn't have that full understanding. I think it takes time. What I do have is a healthy appreciation for it. I don't have a step-by-step answer to the question of why something takes so long, but I do have a healthy appreciation, and I had that a while ago. I think I'm 8 years into ATSU now. I had that a long time ago. And I'm 8 years in, and I still don't have a full understanding of it. I think we have to do something similar to what you did, or work in the ID department to have that full and complete understanding.
Yeah, and it took me 80 hours to even, and like you, I mean, I worked in higher ed for a long time. I thought I really had a better understanding than I did, but you know,
but there was that visual that one of the IDs stood up, and it was one of our professional development, you know, gatherings or something at graduation. I want to say it was like 4 or 5 years ago, and I think it was Sue maybe who stood up, and she just held that piece of paper, and it like fell down. It was like 6 feet long, and it had all these colors. And I mean, just that visual, you know, I didn't see everything that was on that thing, but I'm sure you all remember it. It was this long, gigantic list of steps. And I think her point was just, you know, a picture shows, I mean, it's just like her point was these are all the things that have to happen just for one change. And so I think that could be something that gets passed around, perhaps, that just similar, probably maybe that's what Marcia was referring to.
I do remember that, Aaron. And what I remember thinking at that moment is so when the ID team says they need, you know, module introductions 9 weeks in advance, I didn't get a solid look at if that's step 17 or step 27 on the list. But given that that's one of 87 processes that have to happen to put a course online, I appreciate why. I don't understand 9 weeks versus 7 weeks versus 5 weeks. but I understand that there's a reason for that and it's not arbitrary.
Yeah.
And Kathy added in the chat that when the development process begins, the timeline is provided to the SMA that outlines the process.
And I think, because we get that, and I think what I was able to see was even broader than that, which made it even more effective, like going, oh, because it's not just that one course development process. You can see how it affects everything, like that web. It's not just that one course or that one program. It actually does affect a lot more. So,
my quick comment to what Marcia said. When I'm developing a course, my timeline is do what Beth tells me to do. And I feel like that works really well. And she says, I need this on this day. I say, yes, ma'am. And I've had no problems.
But I think that that's a really important point, because faculty tend to think, well, we have PhDs and we're up here and blah, blah, blah. And no, I mean, it doesn't really work that way these days.
And it's a collaborative effort. We really got to just, everyone collaborate. Unsilo. So knock down those silos. So, all right. I think we're a bit over it. Any last questions or comments? Or I guess, Marcia, I guess you wrap this up. Hey, I'll shut up.
Yeah.
That was really good. Thank you, Lynda. That was really informative. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks for sharing your experience, Lynda. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming and listening.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay. I guess we're wrapping up then. Thank you very much, Lynda. Really appreciate your time.
I want to see if there's any other comments before I log out that I missed, because I